Let's see. We're in season 6.
Okay, so this is season 6.
Yeah.
So the last season was season 5, is what you're saying.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Alrighty.
Welcome to Power to the People podcast. We're back.
It's midterm season 2026.
Yes, and we're gonna help you vote. We're gonna keep you informed. We're not messing around this year.
Adrian, I'm in Sweden. I vote in DC.
I'm Angela, and I live in Germany, and I vote in Florida.
Power to the people.
Power to the people. Welcome, everyone. Today we have a great guest for you, Shelley from Paris. She is the chair of the France Black Caucus, and we're so happy to have you today, Shelley. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm also the chair of the Paris chapter of Democrats Abroad, so I embrace our whole community up here. But I am very happy to represent our African American community here because it's stronger than people think. And so we need to pull them into the fold and be politically active because this is a dangerous time for us.
Yes.
I'm born and raised in Chicago. And when you're born in Chicago, you're born Union and Democrat. That's simple. And from, as they say, knee-high to a grasshopper, my father used to drag me around the neighbors' houses as a little kid when he was campaigning for the various aldermen that were running for office. And he talked politics 24/7. And somewhere it rubbed off on me. I knew the importance of voting. I was 13 years old when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. I did not know who he was, really, other than this figure who was on a commemorative plate in my family's house. And that's when I learned the power of who we were as a people. I started going to Operation Push, which was Operation Breadbasket at the time, and starting to get out and be very active in campaigning. I was lucky enough to work in later years on the campaign for Harold Washington when he became the first Black mayor of the city of Chicago.
Shelley.
Wow.
Shelley.
Yes.
My mother, I think my mother was born and raised in Chicago. I'm so glad you mentioned Harold Washington's name, and I can't let it go by without echoing it. Anytime I think any Black person from Chicago roots connections is Harold Washington. That is, you want to get on your knee. It's almost like saying Marion Barry if you're from DC, if you know what I mean. But even different, you know what I mean? The mystique, the magic, the legend, the man. But they still, some people, don't they think some people think he was killed, that somebody killed him?
I do. I do, big time, straight up. He died in City Hall just like Richard Daley did. He was carried to the hospital and then the morgue in the exact same number 1 fire truck ambulance, paramedic ambulance. But he did eat a lot. And he did eat it incorrectly, which is our biggest problem sometimes as a community. We've got to learn to take care of our health care because it was never designed for us. The healthcare system is designed for wealthy white men, and the next level is women. Wealthy white women. It is not designed for Black people. We remember the Tuskegee Air Project. We were pigs, and we're still.
And we say wealthy white women. We still are. And I saw someone said she was angry. Angela knows her. What is the politics girl? She said something about being angry. And one thing she said, she was going through menopause or something, and she said, there's never been. What did she say? Research for women.
There's never
of the population. So Shelley said, I think you had it right at the first for wealthy white men. So I don't think they thought about their women.
No, they thought about women either. Just secondary. Yeah, the wealthy white women are secondary on the we got to make some money chart, and the way we find out if we can make the money is we test it on Black people. We tested on people of color, but we tested on Black people. Right before I left San Francisco.
Oh, okay. But I want to hear about San Francisco, but I wanted to get back to your activism because I didn't want to take you off your path because you were up to Harold Washington. You worked for him. What an honor. Please go back to it. I want
Big
to hear the
time.
rest of that. I didn't mean to take you off of that, but that was,
That's
I didn't
okay.
know
So
that about
we
you.
could obviously talk forever. But yeah, so when Harold Washington came in, there were 29 aldermen that were against him and 27 that were on his side. And they worked very hard, as they call it, the Vidoliak 29, because Vidoliak was obviously a racist. Chicago at the time was still very, very segregated, right? So, and that was reflected in the Aldermanic Council. And Harold Washington would put something out, and the alderman would shoot it down. And he just kept working. And one day, one of the 29 died. And that means the mayor gets to appoint somebody, and another of the 29 retired. And so he got to appoint two. So now the numbers
Wow.
have flipped. And what we did was we walked around with buttons that said 27 plus 2. That's all the button said, 27 plus 2. And you knew damn well that meant that we had Harold Washington had his numbers he needed to be the mayor, you know. And working on this campaign, I lost some dear friends. You know, I'm sorry. I lost some friends. Take the deer out.
Black people?
Two white women that I worked with, who were in the bathroom right after the primaries when Jane Byrne and Richard Daley Jr. lost to Harold Washington in the primaries. They're in the restroom and they don't know I'm in the stall.
Mm.
And they said, forgive my language, beep it out if you need to. I can't believe that nigga won. That nigga would not have won if Jane Byrne and Daley hadn't split up the vote. I am just so pissed off. And
Wow.
I came out of the stall kicking the door wide
Oh, wait a
open.
second. Did you burst? So you burst out mid piss. I'm sorry, but you came right. You burst out.
I burst out. That door bounced off the wall. When they saw me, they both ran out of the bathroom. One of them didn't work in the same office. She worked in another office. The other one worked in the same office as I work in, and her desk was 50 feet from mine.
Mm.
And when I walked in, she's standing there looking all scared. And I walked up to her and I said, if you come within 20 feet of me, I'm going to kick your mother ass. Right? And she burst into tears, and her boss, who's black,
Oh
called her
my
in the
God.
office to what's going on. And my boss called me in the office. He's the two black senior vice presidents. That's who we worked for. My boss hired me because he said I'm the only senior vice president that's black. At that time he was. He said, and I need somebody who's going to watch my back. Right? So he calls, he's like, what's up, Shelley? I told him what happened. He went, okay. And then her boss basically told her what she did wrong. And when I walked out of my boss's office and he was standing there, I said, move her. Move her. That's all I said. And they put her on the opposite side of the office where I would have had to take a bus almost to get, because we had the whole floor, right? And they kept her away from me. Then the office manager comes in one day. Now, after the primaries, she walks in. The what's his name? The who was running against him, the Republican, was Jewish. And when he found out he won the primary, he actually had a nervous breakdown. You can look in the papers and find this. He had a nervous breakdown. He's in Northwestern Hospital. When he gets out of Northwestern Hospital, they have this huge picture of thousands of white Democrats for Epton wearing their big Democrats for Epton button, because they're going to stay Democrat, but they ain't voting for Harold Washington. All right, so she comes
This
in
is
with her button
Chicago.
on and throws her hair all up in the air and walks past like I care, right? Because in the end, we won, right? And
Mm.
so on the day we won, I had the Chicago Sun-Times, because it's across the front page of the paper. I step on the elevator and I stand right in the doorway with the paper open. So nobody can even walk past me. So all they can see is Harold Washington, mayor of Chicago, on it. Not one person got on the elevator with me. And when I got up to the office, I walked past her desk where she was sitting and did, you know how you shake out the newspaper?
Mm.
And showed it to her and kept walking.
Oh
They were
my
on
God.
WGN radio and these other radio stations. Oh my God, it's going to be chicken bones and watermelon rinds all over City Hall now. Those people are so filthy. I told my mother, could you please cut off the radio before I go homicidal on somebody?
Wow,
Okay,
the
let me,
things
let
that
me, you
people
know what,
would
as you
say.
said, okay, Andrew, huh? Okay, this reminds me a lot of how you would have, the how you handled the office thing. I'm going to ask Angela how she would have handled it, but I want to ask Shelley a couple of things before we lose her for the day. Okay, when, okay, oh gosh, what was I going to ask? Oh, okay, what year was that? Because we're fighting that same battle now. It's going to be chicken bones and watermelons to they're eating the dogs and the cats. So we heard that in 2024. And what are you telling me they were saying in Chicago? What year was this here, Mayor Washington?
Okay, so I left Chicago in 86. This was his
So
first
this is
term.
19. This is
So
his
it's
first
like
time.
19, and I was working at the bank. So it was like 1981, and he was installed in 82, and he was there for
Okay, so
four
dear
years.
listener, you'll see why this is the one reason why we have invited Shelley, our esteemed guest, to be on the show. You can see the length and breadth of her political experience, and she's an excellent example of the battles that we were fighting then, and she's still an activist
Yeah.
now. She was doing that then, and as Angela said when she introduced her, she is still chairing and leading African Americans, not in Chicago though, and not the good people of Illinois, but people from all over the world that live in Paris. So, where are you voting? Why? And what is your message to voters that live outside of the United States who are in our community and our allies? We're speaking to all of us.
Well, the first thing is I vote from California. And I've been living there I lived there for 38 years. So I immediately registered and started voting there. I probably have missed two elections in my whole life, and in my whole voting life, and they were probably primary elections because I do everything I can to make sure I vote in the regular election, and that's because people don't realize our vote counts. You
Yep.
know, I did when Kamala Harris, who I knew from San Francisco, she was a city attorney, and she called me and another group of people in and said, I'm thinking of running for DA. What do you think? And we were like, let's go, baby, let's go. And that's when she ran for DA. And I was doing a get out the vote and voter registration for the young people in Bayview Hunters Point at that time. And one of the young men came to me and told me he said, why we need to vote? I mean, they all the same politician, and none of them care about us and all this stuff that's happening. I said, no vote, no voice. So something happened, and he comes in my office because he assumes he can talk to me about politics. And I said, I'm sorry, did you register to vote? And he said, no. I said, then you need to get out. No vote, no. You don't vote, you don't have a voice. I don't care what you think. Right. So if we were doing the voters registration, so he went downstairs, registered to vote, came back up with a copy of his card and said, I just registered to vote. And I said, sit down, what's up? And that's how we need to talk to each other.
Hey there, U.S. citizens abroad. Did you know that U.S. citizens overseas have a right to vote in U.S. elections? Well, you do, and your votes count. Your votes made a big difference in key races in 2016 and 2020. And what do you have to do? Register at votefromabroad.org. Here's a tip. If you request your ballot by email, all you have to do is vote and send it back. I love that even though you're all over the globe, you still give a damn about your country. Anyone out there that knows an American, please tell them to register to vote at votefromabroad.org. Appreciate you.
Every single vote counts. Every vote counts on both sides of the aisle. The Republicans, they use money, and the Democrats, we need to make them pay attention. We're voting for you. Do the work. They
Let me
are
ask you a
our
question.
employees.
Exactly. So break that down again. You were a voter's employee. What was your role? You were a city employee, and what is our responsibility as voters to hold these people accountable?
I was the director of a cultural center, executive director of a cultural center. I had various positions with the city, but fortunately, and I wasn't, because I could go out and do registered voting and get people involved. I worked on campaigns for Willie Brown, London Breed, Gavin Newsom, and Ed Lee. So I worked on like the
For
last four mayors that we
example,
had.
exactly. So, for example, me as an active participant is not. I have to register to vote. I have to vote. But after that, voting, my responsibility doesn't end there. So my responsibility, because you were telling that person, if you didn't vote, you don't have a voice. So once I have a voice, how do I hold people responsible? Angela, you can come in here and answer that too. I can call, I can write, but how do I do that as the average person, and how do I do that from abroad? Angela, can you start, and Shelley, maybe you
Well,
have some examples of what you've done recently.
there's a number of ways to get in contact with your representatives, but there's this app called Five Calls, and it will put you in, I think it's fivecalls.com, and it will tell you who your House representatives person is, who your two senators are, and it'll also tell you like your governor and other state or city people that are there. You can also, you can also go. There's another site which I'll tell you in a little bit because I need to look it up to be precise. But there are many ways, and you really can contact your governor or your city councilman or your mayor, or your
Yeah,
representatives, your governor. A
you
long
don't have to
time
be
ago,
connected. You don't have to be a celebrity,
you don't
No.
have to
right?
be. I remember right before I moved to Germany, what's his name? Bush, the Bush that was Jeb Bush. I always forget him. Um, he's very unremarkable. Um, he was the governor, and they were
The
about.
forgettable Bush. But that's probably good. I'd rather be the
But
forgettable Bush.
yeah,
But
well, that's true. You probably lead an easier life. I, but I, they were going to try to make having a country club membership tax deductible. And I remember hearing that on the news, and I wrote the governor's
hmm,
office, and I was like, this is insane. If you want to join a country club, that's your business, but it shouldn't be tax deductible. And I
yeah.
never thought I would hear back, but I did. I got a message from the governor, and he said, you're absolutely right. I'm going to veto this legislation. And he did. So, you
See,
know,
not only does your vote count, but that's okay. Shelley says if your voice doesn't count, I mean, if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. So Angela pointed through that you know, you have a voice, and sometimes it's listened to. Well, here's the thing:
yes,
it's heard. Angela proved that it's heard, but sometimes it's listened to, right? Because I think you would have been okay with, you know what? I heard you,
Adrian,
but
it's
I'm going to
deeper
go
than
either
that.
way.
It's deeper than that, okay? When you have a voice, the voice is not just your vote, it's not just your phone call, it's just not your email, it's your active participation in the political process. It's up to you to know who is running in the primary, who you want to vote for. It's up to you to know their record, it's up for you to challenge their record, it's up to you to send them phone calls and letters like Angela is talking about, It's you don't just vote and walk away. And that is the reason that we in the
Yes.
problem we are today. People just the ones that didn't want to register to vote said it doesn't matter. They're allowing themselves to be sheep and led by whoever it is that lands in office. It matters when
It
we vote, when we all come together and make the right vote. Look at Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, he had a $5 a person donation. He was boots on the ground, and
This is going to come out in time that we can say what's happening on Juneteenth. And I know Angela likes Juneteenth, but Shelley, something very special for you is happening on Juneteenth this year. What is it, sweetheart? Because of you, I know about it.
I'm sorry, I'm so excited about it. On June 18th, I'm gonna try not to cry. On June 18th, Barack Obama is doing the opening ceremony for his
yes.
education center in
Yes.
the middle of the most important black park in all of Chicago. It's where we
Yeah.
gathered for everything. And he's there. He's putting his image, he's putting his history, he's putting our education right there. And what we're trying to do right now, and all the help we can get, he's going to live stream it on June 18th, the opening ceremony. On June 19th, 20th, and 21st, he's opening the center up for an open house for people to come and to see it. And it's a campus. It's not a building. It's a campus. And
yes, it's gorgeous.
So it's absolutely beautiful. I am just, I have no words for how good it feels. I mean, I actually had thought about flying to Chicago to attend it. And I have no desire to go back to the U.S. right now.
But I thought about it too.
Yes.
I thought about it too. I thought about it. I was looking on their website, and they do weddings. They'll have a place for weddings too. And I was like, I told my husband, we should go and have our vows renewed there.
There you go. And not only that, it's so he's in, and I'm so crazy because there's Washington Park, and then there's, my mind just died on me, our other park. And
Grant Park.
Only about,
Grant.
No. Not Grant Park. There are two parks on the south side that are black parks. And DuSable Museum is in one.
Hyde Park?
No. HYDE, and that's where Barack Obama lives or lives. So no, there are two parks. There's Washington Park, and then there's Shelley's Brain Died Park, and those two parks are the black parks in in Chicago. And that was like, if black folks wanted to go to a picnic, that's the only place you're going to be able to go. Barack Obama is live streaming it. They're going to live stream.
Thank you for giving us the hard lesson about what participation means, and you reminded us that it's our responsibility to know the candidates and the records. Angela has a good resource for doing that. If you want to get up to date on what the candidates have done and who the new candidates are in the primaries, what's your resource, Angela, that you recommend?
Yeah, go to bluevoterguide.org. All you need to do is put in your voting address, and then it gives you everything, every election that's on your ballot. It tells you about all the people that are running, no matter what it does tell you about non-Democrats, but don't vote for any of those people. And it does tell you about that. It also tells you.
Well, here's the thing: you can use it. You can be fair. Here's the thing. You can look at it and say, because if you're a first-time voter, and here's the thing, I don't blame you. Maybe you don't want to vote like your parents said, even though your parents are always right 99.9% of the time. And you realize this later on in your adulthood, especially when you have your own kids, that your parents are 99% right. So what if you don't want to vote Republicans because your parents say, you're a first-time voter? Okay, use this. Look at the Republican candidate against the blue one. Are you really going to vote for that Republican person when you got this great Democrat? You don't trust them. Do your research. That's what blueballot.org is for, right? And you can look at that. Look at the independent. Maybe that independent's going to win where you are. The Social Democrat won in New York as the mayor, right? Who knows? Do your
What
research.
we really need, do you know what we really need? We really need our young people stepping up and running for office. That's what we need. We need young people to run for school board, mayor, city council, whatever the jobs are. Get in there, run for office because, I'm 71 years old right now. 10 years from now, everything that Trump and his crazy people are doing will have destroyed so much that it'll
Shelley, let me
take
give
decades to get it back. And
Oh,
we
do you
need
think
can
it'll
young
you
be
do
people
10
a
in
years from
message?
office.
now?
Yeah,
Huh?
we don't need that long. Shelley, can you give us a message for your okay, you're 70. So should it be your grandchildren or your children that should be running for office? Can you give a
I think it
message to
should
that
absolutely.
to
Well, right now
technically?
it should be our children. That's why I'm working with so many young people in Paris.
Okay,
My
so let me
entire
hear a
team is
heartfelt. Let me hear a heartfelt. Make a picture or not from a mother to a son. You're the mother, because maybe you know your son. Maybe he'd make a horrible politician. But what mother who knows her son or daughter would be wonderful? What would you tell them, knowing everything that you know? Dear child,
well,
the world needs you
Well,
to
let me
do
just say
this.
this. Let me just say this. My son is 53 years old, so he's kind of on that border of being too old. But I had him involved in politics and for the African American Tobacco Free Program, he went to the state of California and he talked to some of the council people and told them that they need to change the law. And he just
No,
said,
go
my
for it.
son went into the councilman and he told the assemblyman, and he told me later on, you clearly have educated your son in politics. He's going to take my job because he convinced us that we need to change the legislation. So that's what we do. We grab their hand, we lift them up, we put them out there. That's the way we change the future.
That's the way we change the future. Well, you know what, Shelley? I'm glad you told us story because that is what we needed to hear. Right, Angela? The way we're going to have our youth, our first time voters, our voters who lived overseas for decades and never voted back home because they didn't think it mattered. We're going to invite you to go to votefromabroad.org today. Primaries are happening this month, next month. Mine is happening in June, some all the way up into August. We
Mine
know
too.
general election starts in November. If you have family and friends that live in the States, we recommend they go to iwillvote.com. Angela, let us people know where to go for fantastic events we have coming up all the
Oh,
way
well,
to Election Day.
you can always go to democratsabroad.org/events and find out all of the great events that we're having around the world and online. It's an awesome resource, and you can find almost everything you can imagine, and even some stuff you can't. So, yeah,
I
check
know,
our
Shelley,
events
thanks
out.
for
Yeah.
coming today. Yes, Shelley, thanks
Thanks
for
for
coming
having
today.
me. By the way, it's
Hold it
Jackson
down in
Park is
Paris.
where Obama's going to be. He's in Jackson
Mm.
Park, and
Jackson Park.
Washington Park
That's
was the
it.
other one. I had to find it or it was going to drive me crazy.
That's it. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you
Bye,
so much.
everybody.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Power to the People podcast. Don't forget to go to votefromabroad.org if you're an American outside of the U.S.
And if you're living in the United States, go to iwillvote.com and check you're registered. Also, go to democratsabroad.org/events and come and see all the magic that we're making.
Power to the people, y'all.
Power to the people.